Malia Carter stepped off the plane at midnight, the hum of the runway lights throbbing in her ears. She had cut her Milan buying trip short by nearly a week. The frantic pace of finalizing her company's contracts in Europe no longer seemed as appealing as the warmth of home. She wanted to be in her own bed, with her own husband, Darren Carter. Inside the terminal, her phone buzzed with a string of texts from her best friend, Joan Wells, but Malia ignored them for the moment. Instead, she scrolled through her camera roll, smiling at the pictures she had taken in Milan, runway models in bold prints, behind-the-scenes glimpses of design ateliers, and selfies with fellow buyers. This trip was supposed to mark a highlight of her season. Yet, after days of feeling an inexplicable tug in her chest, she decided to return early. A sense of urgency had pressed on her heart. She missed home more than usual. She missed Darren. With a carry-on slung over her shoulder, she strolled toward the exit, mentally planning out the surprise for her husband. First stop, a 24-hour gourmet grocery store to pick up his favorite prime rib. Second stop, the florist. Lilies, white and regal, always reminded Darren of his late mother. The plan was simple. She'd sneak into the house, place the flowers on the kitchen table, prep dinner, then slip into something alluring. By morning, she imagined, they'd wake up together and laugh over her dramatic early return. Sliding into the back seat of a black SUV, she noticed the city's night lights blending into a hazy glow. A wave of longing swept over her. She opened the group chat with her team. Everyone was praising her for finalizing a major deal. Her status in the fashion world was skyrocketing, but in that moment, she couldn't wait to trade the spotlight for Darren's comforting embrace. If only she knew the storm that awaited her. But for now, in the hush of that late night, Malia was certain she was doing the right thing, coming home early to surprise the man she loved. She considered calling him, just to give him a hint, but changed her mind. Surprises, she decided, were always more thrilling when unannounced. She texted Joan, landing safely. "Don't tell anyone, especially not Darren. I have a master plan." A grin tugged at her lips as she pictured Darren's reaction. She had no idea her homecoming would be anything but joyous. Malia tugged at her oversized sweater as the driver navigated the quiet streets. The city glowed with occasional neon signs, and her heart fluttered every time they passed a familiar block. She didn't live too far from the airport, but traffic lights seemed to conspire to slow her down. A sudden flash of vibrant red caught her eye when they paused at a major intersection. It was a towering billboard advertising a new lipstick brand. The model in the advertisement was none other than Zara Carter, Malia's half-sister. Zara, draped in a sequined gown, pouted her crimson lips seductively with the tagline, "Be bold. Be you." The ad wasn't a surprise in itself. Zara had been working on launching her makeup line for over a year, riding the wave of her social media following. What triggered Malia's unease was how the brand had used Malia's connections in the fashion world to secure prime advertising spots. Malia didn't mind helping her sister, but there had been tension about Zara wanting more, always more, be it money, introductions, or premium locations. "Bold red," Malia murmured. It was Zara's signature color, vibrant, ruthless, and prone to staining everything it touched. A weird tingling feeling curled in Malia's stomach as she saw Zara's face lit up against the night sky. There was pride, yes, but also the faint echo of resentment. Zara often liked to remind Malia of how overshadowed she felt in the Carter family. Yet, ironically, she never hesitated to leverage Malia's success. A memory flickered. Darren once joked about how Zara's lipstick always ended up on cups and collars, leaving lingering marks. At the time, Malia brushed it off as a passing quip. Now, that memory sparked a pang of apprehension. She pushed it aside. She had no reason to suspect anything amiss. Or so she told herself. When the driver turned onto her street, Malia forced her attention back to her surprise. She mentally listed her next steps: drop off her luggage, arrange the lilies on the table, start cooking, then text Darren to check in. She envisioned his face once she called him from the kitchen, letting him hear the sizzle of the pan in the background. He'd rush home, arms open, heart pounding with excitement. It was perfect. Yet a soft alarm hummed at the back of her mind. She found it odd that Darren hadn't been texting her his usual nightly check-ins. Typically, he was an early-to-bed person. She assumed he might have dozed off. Still, The lingering glimpse of Zara's smug face on that billboard whispered something ominous. She tried to bury the feeling. After all, it was just an advertisement, just a face. But she couldn't shake the small sense of foreboding that red lipstick conjured. When Malia finally stepped out of the SUV, the city air felt sharper than usual, a biting breeze that prickled her skin. She glanced at her phone. 2 a.m. A formidable hour, typically still for her neighborhood. Street lamps cast long shadows, and the hush felt magnified by the emptiness of the suburban lane. She dragged her suitcase to the front gate, scanning her surroundings for any sign of activity. For a moment, everything seemed normal, until she spotted a silver coupe parked 2 blocks down, partially hidden under a large elm tree. At first, she took no notice, but something about the license plate tugged at her memory. She squinted in the dim light, stepping a bit closer. Her heart tumbled when she realized it was Zara's car. Zara. Here. At 2 in the morning? Malia's rational mind tried to piece together a reason. Perhaps Zara was visiting a friend or a late-night cafe. But Malia knew these streets. There was no cafe or bar in this upscale, strictly residential area. The nearest business district was a good 10-minute drive away. Her mind churned. Could Zara be meeting Darren for something innocent, like discussing business or surprising Malia? But that didn't feel right. Zara rarely visited unannounced, and Malia had received no texts about a family gathering. More importantly, Malia knew Zara didn't do anything at 2 in the morning without a reason. Usually, that reason was either a night out or something she wanted to keep hidden. The tension crawled up Malia's spine, increasing her unease. Despite the dread creeping in, she maintained her composure. Maybe there was an explanation she was overthinking. Or perhaps Zara was seeing someone in the neighborhood. Malia quickly recalled that her neighbor often threw lavish parties. But no, that neighbor had been on a month-long trip to Paris. The pieces refused to fit nicely. Reaching her front porch, Malia laid her key gently into the lock. She paused to glance back at Zara's car, half expecting her sister to appear. Instead, the street remained eerily still. It felt as though even the wind was holding its breath. With a pounding heart, Malia turned the knob, stepping into her dimly lit foyer. She flicked on a lamp, letting a cascade of warm light spill across the hardwood. Something was off. She couldn't name it, but the air felt electric, charged with secrets. She turned her gaze down the hallway leading to the bedroom. Her stomach clenched as she registered the faint flicker of candlelight from under the door. The house was strangely silent, punctuated only by a low hum of music coming from the bedroom. Malia recognized the tune instantly. It was Darren's romance playlist, something he typically reserved for special nights. She frowned. Candlelight and soft R&B at 2 a.m. on a random weekday? A chill prickled over her skin. Either Darren had been planning a surprise of his own, or something far more sinister was unfolding. Malia removed her shoes and tread lightly, suitcase abandoned near the door. Her heart drummed so loudly she feared it would give her presence away. As she crept closer to the bedroom, she could make out soft voices, muffled, but clearly 2 distinct tones. One was Darren's, the other female. Her breath caught in her throat. Dread unspooled inside her like a dark ribbon. She swallowed hard, pressing her ear gently against the door. Her mind spun with possible scenarios. Maybe Zara had come over to discuss a personal crisis. Perhaps Darren was just comforting her. Yet the voices carried a heated undertone, stirring doubts in Malia's mind. She recalled the silver coupe parked outside, Zara's pride and joy. The realization that it definitely belonged to her sister hit like a sucker punch. 1,000 memories flooded Malia's thoughts. Family dinners where Zara shot subtle glares, heated arguments over finances that Darren brushed off as sibling issues, the times Malia defended Zara against critics who claimed Zara had no real talent. She tried to calm her racing mind, but the evidence stacked precariously toward the unthinkable. Her grip tightened around her phone. For a second, she considered bursting in with fury. But something held her back, a numb sort of clarity that insisted she document whatever was happening. With trembling hands, she activated the camera on her phone and quietly pushed the bedroom door ajar. Her eyes fell on the flickering candles near the bed, the rumpled sheets, and 2 intertwined figures. The reality was harsh, immediate, and devastating. Under the glow of candlelight, she saw her sister's unmistakable profile. Zara's long hair cascaded over her bare shoulders, her face turned upward toward Darren, who was whispering something Malia couldn't discern. Rage, betrayal, and heartbreak erupted in Malia's chest, warring for dominance. But she fought to keep silent. This moment, this raw, brutal discovery, she wanted it captured. Not for revenge, not yet, but because she needed undeniable proof of the depths of their betrayal. She steadied her phone, recording a few seconds of the scene. Then, as if in slow motion, she watched her sister's gaze shift. Zara's eyes widened in horror, meeting Malia's across the room. A single second of shocked silence stretched like an eternity. Darren turned, panic flooding his features. But Malia made no sound, no outburst. She simply tapped the stop button on her phone and backed away, stepping out of the room as quietly as she had entered, her heart thudding like thunder in her ears. She knew she would never be the same after this night. "Malia, wait!" Darren's voice cracked through the silence, laced with desperation. Zara, scrambling for the sheets, cried out in stammering half-sentences. Their words blurred into a cacophony of guilt and panic. But Malia was already halfway down the hallway, her steps painfully measured. She paused at the threshold to look back at them for one final, searing moment. Darren stood, chest heaving, eyes pleading for understanding as he clutched a pillow around his waist. Zara, hair disheveled, was wrapped in the bedspread, her lipstick smeared, a bright red slash across her mouth, the same color from her billboard. That glaring red felt like a final mocking stamp on Malia's life. Everything about the scene radiated shock and shame, but Malia's fury had morphed into a chilling calm. She inhaled slowly, letting the sting of betrayal sink into her bones. Her trembling fingers tightened around her phone, the device that held the damning footage. When Zara opened her mouth to speak, Malia cut her off with a stark raise of her hand. "No," Malia whispered, voice ice-cold. "Don't. You've done enough." The air in the house seemed to vanish, replaced by the suffocating tension of broken trust. Malia's eyes were deadlocked on her sister's face. She wondered how many times Zara had envied her life, how many times Malia had tried to include Zara in everything. Holidays, brand launches, events with Darren. She recalled the countless moments she felt pity for Zara, who often complained about feeling overshadowed. Now, that pity curdled into something else. Without another word, Malia turned and walked out, letting her calm composure speak volumes. Darren stumbled after her, calling her name, but she slipped into the cool night air and disappeared around the corner. She didn't bother closing the door behind her. The house, once her sanctuary, now felt too tainted for such trivial niceties. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, forcing her mind into a razor-sharp focus. She needed to leave. She needed to breathe. She needed to escape before she unleashed the storm raging inside her. She reached for her car keys, but her hands shook so violently that she dropped them. Stooping to pick them up, she caught sight of Zara's silver coupe. The very sight of it ignited a surge of nausea. She wanted to scream, to break every window in sight, but the wave of devastation that followed was too heavy. Instead, she climbed into her own car, started the engine, and gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles whitened. In the rearview mirror, she glimpsed Darren standing at the open door, barefoot and frantic. The image etched itself into her mind. Then she slammed her foot on the gas, roaring down the dark street, oblivious to the tears flooding her cheeks. She didn't know where she was going yet. All she knew was she couldn't stay there a second longer. Malia parked her car on a deserted road overlooking the city skyline. The early morning air had a bite, and faint wisps of fog hovered over dimly lit street lamps. She sat motionless, staring at the glittering lights in the distance, her phone face down in the passenger seat. Her eyes burned, but her tears had run dry. An odd sense of numbness enveloped her. A part of her wanted to smash something, to let out an agonized scream into the stillness. Another part simply refused to acknowledge what she had just witnessed, as though it were a nightmarish hallucination that would dissolve with the sunrise. She pressed her forehead to the steering wheel. The ache in her chest felt unbearable. Then, with trembling breaths, she replayed the last few hours in her mind. The billboard, the lipstick, Zara's car, the music from her bedroom, the sight of her husband and sister entangled in candlelight. The betrayal was layered with so many absurd details. If it were any other situation, she might have laughed at the sheer brazenness of it all. Her phone buzzed, a single vibration. She knew it was probably Darren, or maybe Zara. She refused to look. Another vibration. Then another. In a haze, she picked up the phone, half expecting it to be her best friend Joan's name on the screen. Instead, it was Darren. 20 missed calls so far, countless messages. She swiped them away without reading. An incoming call from Joan appeared, and this time, Malia answered. Her voice caught in her throat. She managed only a broken whisper. "I caught them." Silence stretched on the other end, broken finally by Joan's steady, low voice. "What do you mean, caught them?" "Malia, you're scaring me." Malia drew a ragged breath, the words tumbling out. "Zara and Darren. In our bed. I recorded everything." A quick gasp. Then Joan said, "You did the right thing, keeping your calm." She paused, searching for comforting words. "I know it hurts like hell, but sometimes we have to witness the worst to see what we truly deserve." Malia listened numbly, letting Joan's reassurance drape over her like a fragile blanket. She might not have fully believed that she deserved better yet, but she trusted Joan. When her tears finally came, they broke free in shuddering waves. Joan stayed on the line, silent except for the occasional whispered, "I'm here." By the time the call ended, Malia's silence took on a different weight. No longer paralyzed, she felt a thread of resolve begin to form. She didn't know what would happen next, but she did know that her life couldn't continue as it had before. As dawn crept over the horizon, Malia drove aimlessly for a while, refusing to return to the house she once called home. Every road felt endless, every turn a dead end. The shock was still fresh, but something about the new morning light forced her to confront reality. She dialed Joan's number again, and her best friend answered before the first ring finished. "I need a place to stay," Malia murmured. Joan's voice was immediate and warm. "Mine is yours. You know that." Within half an hour, Malia parked in front of Joan's compact townhouse. The small yard out front was festooned with potted plants, including a wilted rosebush that Joan was trying to revive. Under the subtle glow of dawn, it looked both welcoming and a little sad, an apt reflection of Malia's heart. Joan met her at the door, pulling her into a long hug. A comforting smell of coffee and vanilla wafted from the kitchen, mixing with the crisp morning air. Malia broke into tears again, burying her face in Joan's shoulder. Anger and sorrow erupted in fresh waves. "That bastard, that snake of a sister," Joan murmured. "I knew Zara had her issues, but this?" Malia pulled back, her words tumbling over each other. "I can't believe it. I was literally gone for a few days. Was he that desperate? Were they? Did they plan this?" Joan guided Malia inside, settling her on the couch, covering her with a soft fleece blanket. "I don't think it matters how long you were gone. Some people do what they do because they have no respect, no loyalty. Darren was always charming in that fake, polished way. And Zara, she's had jealousy issues since day one." Malia pressed her palms to her face, her voice muffled. "I feel like my life just exploded. Everything was fine until I decided to come home early." Joan handed her a mug of coffee, steam curling into the air. "They deserve the blame, not you. This was no accident." For a brief moment, Malia considered the possibility of turning back the clock, undoing her early arrival, letting ignorance be her shield. But the stark betrayal had been laid bare, and she couldn't unsee it. Reality had shattered her illusions. In the swirl of heartbreak, one thing felt clear: she would never be the same again. By mid-morning, Malia mustered the courage to check her phone. Dozens of messages glared at her. Darren had sent paragraphs pleading for forgiveness, claiming it was a mistake, insisting Zara had initiated it. Mixed in were frantic voicemails. "Malia, pick up. Let's talk. I'm sorry. I swear I love you." The words stung like salt in a raw wound. Worse yet, there were no messages from Zara. Instead, when Malia tried to call her half-sister, she discovered she'd been blocked. That single act solidified Zara's guilt more than any tearful apology could have. She was hiding, trying to evade the inevitable reckoning. Joan, perched on the arm of the couch, massaged Malia's shoulder as she scrolled through the texts. "I can't believe the nerve. Darren has the audacity to call you over and over, while Zara doesn't even have the decency to talk." Malia let out a shaky breath. "Part of me wants a confrontation. I want to look her in the eyes and ask why. The other part of me is terrified I already know the answer. She's always wanted what I have." "Then you know it wasn't just about Darren." Joan's voice softened. "It's about taking something from you. Maybe she wanted to feel powerful, overshadow you in the worst possible way." A memory flickered in Malia's mind. Zara at 18, storming out of a graduation party because Malia received more praise for her college acceptance. That evening, Malia had tracked her down and reassured her for hours, telling her she was talented too. Malia had been so careful not to let Zara feel inadequate. She had always tried to share her spotlight. Now, it felt like all those gestures were wasted. Malia swallowed, forcing back tears. She looked at Joan. "What do I even do now?" Joan set down her coffee mug. "You stay strong, you stay silent, and you let them stew. Right now, we focus on you. Let's figure out your next moves. Lawyers, living arrangements, everything. There's no quick fix, but you have me, and you have the rest of your friends who love you." Exhaustion weighed on Malia, but she nodded. "I won't contact them. I won't let them manipulate me. It's just, I feel so empty." Joan's gaze was fierce. "That empty space will fill with something new, Malia. Something stronger. Trust me." Malia set her phone aside, ignoring the insistent buzz of Darren's calls. As far as she was concerned, he and Zara no longer existed. She was ghosting them both, for now, at least. Sometime in the early afternoon, while Malia nibbled on leftover toast at Joan's kitchen table, a text from an unknown number pinged her phone. It was a link accompanied by 3 words: "Check your Twitter." Malia felt her stomach lurch. She clicked on the link, and there it was, a short clip of her quietly opening the bedroom door, revealing Darren and Zara in their moment of betrayal. The video, her video, had been leaked online. Within hours of her discovering the affair, the world had discovered it too. Her jaw dropped. "How? This was on my phone. I only showed it to you, Joan." Her eyes narrowed, panic rising. Joan looked equally shocked. "I swear it wasn't me. Why would I?" They both stared at the phone in disbelief. Joan snatched it, scrolling through the thread. Anonymous account. Probably a burner profile. But it's gaining traction. People are already sharing it with hashtags about betrayal. Malia's mind whirled, battling the fresh wave of humiliation. Could Darren have leaked it, in some twisted attempt for sympathy? That made no sense. Could Zara? More likely, but also bizarre. She thought of how easily digital files could be taken from iCloud accounts, or how Joan's phone might have been accessed if she had shared it with someone. Or maybe Malia's phone was compromised. The who and how didn't matter as much as the fact that it was out there. Hundreds, then thousands, of comments were flooding in. Some pitying Malia, some condemning Darren and Zara, others treating it like a sordid piece of entertainment. As Malia scrolled, her breathing became ragged. The entire ordeal had been publicized in a matter of hours. "I'm going to throw up," she whispered, clutching her stomach. Joan helped her to the couch, rubbing her back soothingly. "This is so messed up. But maybe it's not the worst thing that could happen." Malia stared at her friend in disbelief. "How can you say that?" Joan's eyes were sad but resolute. "Look, the world has eyes on what Darren and Zara did. Let the public shame be part of their punishment. Let them deal with the fallout. You, stay out of the spotlight. Lay low. Don't engage. The truth is out now, and they can't spin it." The logic made sense in a twisted way, but Malia still felt violated by the sudden publicity. She sighed, pushing away tears. The internet is already tearing them apart. Joan nodded grimly. "Then let it. You didn't start this war, Malia. But you can let the truth stand. Despite the swirling chaos online, Malia sank into a pained acceptance. In some strange way, she felt a grim satisfaction that she wouldn't have to prove anything anymore. The video spoke for itself. Word traveled fast in the Carter family, and by nightfall, Malia's grandmother, Mama Cora, came knocking at Joan's door. The elderly woman moved slowly, but her presence was commanding. She had a regal air about her, and her dark eyes sparkled with equal measures of warmth and sternness. The moment Malia saw her grandmother, she broke into sobs. Mama Cora held her tightly, stroking her hair and murmuring soft words in their native dialect. Her mere presence felt like a balm on Malia's shredded nerves. After the tears subsided, Mama Cora settled onto the couch, crossing her legs and leaning forward. "Sit," she instructed gently. Malia sat at her grandmother's feet, tears still glistening on her cheeks. "I'm so sorry you have to see me like this." Mama Cora pressed a weathered hand against Malia's cheek. "Never apologize for your heartache, child. Better to feel deeply than not at all." Her voice was gentle but firm. "I've heard enough to know what happened. Zara called me earlier, asking for me to understand her. But I am an old woman. I understand more than she thinks." Malia felt a sting at the mention of Zara. "She's trying to justify herself to you?" Mama Cora's lips thinned. "She is. And Darren had the gall to call me too. Both are searching for redemption from me. But I told them, redemption starts with truth, and they haven't found it yet." Joan hovered by the kitchen door, watching the scene quietly. Mama Cora's gaze shifted to her, acknowledging her with a respectful nod. Then she turned back to Malia. "Listen to me carefully. When I was younger, I faced betrayals too. Friends who lied, family who stole. I learned that heartbreak can be an awakening. You see who people truly are." Malia's chest tightened at the wisdom in her grandmother's words. She looked up, wiping her tears. "I never expected this from Zara." Mama Cora stroked her granddaughter's hair gently. "Sometimes, envy and jealousy can drive a person to dark places. That is not your burden to carry. Let them sit in their own shame. You must rise above." Malia closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. "I want to. But I'm angry, and I feel so lost." "That anger is justified. Use it to propel yourself to a better future. Don't let it keep you stuck." Mama Cora's fingers pressed gently on Malia's shoulder. "You don't have to make any decisions tonight. But soon, you must decide what life you will have beyond this." Malia leaned her head against her grandmother's knee, taking in her calming scent of peppermint and lavender. For the first time since the betrayal, she felt a flicker of inner peace. She might be broken, but she sensed the promise of healing in Mama Cora's words. And that small spark was enough to keep her going. 2 days passed before Malia summoned the courage to step back into her home. She arrived in the early evening, accompanied by Joan, determined to gather her thoughts and decide her next steps. Darren, mercifully, was nowhere to be found. A quick glance at his messages hinted he was now staying at a hotel, pleading with her to meet him. The living room felt foreign, each piece of furniture carrying a memory. She could almost see the ghosts of happier times, watching movies with Darren, hosting friends for wine nights, celebrating anniversaries. The warmth of those recollections now felt like a cruel joke. Without a word, Malia headed to the bedroom. She paused in the doorway. The bed was stripped of sheets, mattress bare. The air still carried the faint smell of burnt candles and betrayal. Clenching her jaw, she grabbed a set of trash bags and a couple of suitcases from the storage closet. Joan hovered near the door, letting Malia take the lead. One by one, Malia tossed Darren's clothes into the suitcases. Button-down shirts, ties, pajamas, each item a reminder of the man who once vowed fidelity. Anger built with every folded garment. She moved with swift efficiency, a swirl of heartbreak fueling her. She separated out Darren's prized cufflinks, his watch collection, and even the cologne he wore on their wedding day. That memory stung the most, and she clutched the bottle in her hand for a moment, tears hot on her cheeks. Her world spun as she remembered the day he vowed to love her forever. "No more tears," she whispered, setting the cologne aside. "They don't get to do this to me." At the top of the bedroom closet was Darren's wedding ring box. He had kept it as a sentimental keepsake, occasionally showing it off to guests as if it were a trophy. Malia opened it and placed his ring on top of the folded clothes in one of the suitcases, a final punctuation to this heartbreak. Joan watched quietly, occasionally placing a supportive hand on Malia's arm. They worked in grim silence, packing every trace of Darren's belongings until the only items left in the closet were Malia's. By the time they finished, the sun had dipped below the horizon, casting the room in shadow. Malia zipped the suitcases and dragged them to the living room. With a resolute sigh, she texted Darren, "Your things are packed. Pick them up from the garage by tomorrow morning. After that, I'm changing the locks." She added a second message, "We have nothing to discuss in person." For a moment, she stared at the send button before pressing it. When the message delivered, she felt the slightest bit lighter. She had taken the first concrete step toward reclaiming her life. It was a small victory, but a significant one. That same night, while Malia and Joan were loading Darren's bags into the garage, a string of notifications lit up Malia's phone. It seemed Zara had broken her silence, publicly. Curious and bracing herself, Malia opened her sister's Instagram feed. The post read, "Love is complicated. Sometimes the heart wants what it wants. I hope people can reserve judgment until they know the full story. #no shame #real feelings." Zara had disabled comments, but not before thousands of reactions poured in across various social media platforms. News outlets and gossip blogs picked up the post, feeding the narrative. The internet erupted with fresh vitriol, outraged on Malia's behalf. Some supporters of Zara argued that no one knows the full story, while a loud majority condemned her audacity. Joan read the post over Malia's shoulder and huffed in disbelief. Is she serious? The heart wants what it wants. That's how she justifies hooking up with her sister's husband. Malia's throat constricted with a blend of anger and deep sadness. Unbelievable. She's always had this twisted ability to make herself the victim or the misunderstood one. She posted it like it's some star-crossed lovers scenario, Joan scoffed. It's not Romeo and Juliet, it's a betrayal. And she's trending all over Twitter again, for all the wrong reasons. Despite the growing swarm of online condemnation toward Zara, Malia felt no joy in watching her sister's downfall. The betrayal still gnawed at her core, overshadowing any sense of vindication. But as she scrolled through the posts, a part of her recognized that this public dragging was a result of Zara's own attempt at damage control. If Zara thought she could manipulate public opinion, she had grossly miscalculated the public's tolerance for disloyalty. Malia pressed the lock button on her phone and set it aside, refusing to engage any further. Let the internet handle this. I'm done giving her more of my energy. Joan nodded, slumping against the garage wall. You deserve peace, Malia. Focus on your future, not their drama. In the silence that followed, Malia could practically sense the internet raging. But for once, she felt a measure of calm. Zara's public post only underscored the glaring chasm between them, and Darren's complicity was written between every line. Whatever illusions remained were shattered. There was no going back. That night, Malia lay on the guest bed in her own home, eyes locked on the ceiling as she finally allowed her mind to unravel the past. Like an old film reel, memories flickered by, each illuminating moments she had once dismissed or misunderstood. She recalled a dinner party, 6 months earlier, where Darren had been uncharacteristically attentive to Zara's stories about her upcoming makeup line. At the time, Malia was just grateful they were bonding. She remembered stumbling upon Zara giggling with Darren over some inside joke during a family reunion. Back then, she thought it was innocent camaraderie. Other flashbacks surfaced, Zara mentioning how Darren was so supportive of her ambitions, how she frequently texted him about business advice. Malia had assumed it was all part of keeping the family close. Now she saw the manipulative threads weaving through those events. Darren had likely been fueling Zara's envy, stroking her ego, offering her the attention she craved, attention that Malia, in her busier schedule, sometimes failed to provide. Zara, for her part, had harbored a long-standing jealousy of Malia, always wanting her success but refusing to put in the same level of work. Darren's presence was an easy route to everything she coveted. Malia sighed, shutting her eyes against the memories. She felt a pang of regret for not noticing the signs earlier. But she also knew blame belonged to Darren and Zara, not her. They had orchestrated this betrayal, nurtured it in the shadows. A faint rustle drew Malia's attention to the doorway. Joan stood there, wearing pajama bottoms and an oversized t-shirt, concern etched on her face. "How are you holding up?" Malia gave a small shrug, realizing the puzzle pieces have been there all along. "I just never put them together." Joan approached the bed and sat at the edge, placing a comforting hand on Malia's arm. "Hindsight is always 20/20, but that doesn't make this your fault." A wry smile twisted Malia's lips. "I know. Doesn't stop me from feeling blindsided." Joan squeezed her hand. "Remember what Mama Cora said, this might be your awakening. It's a harsh lesson, but it might free you to become something even greater." Malia closed her eyes, letting Joan's words sink in. Tomorrow, she would figure out her next move. Tonight, she allowed herself to mourn the life she thought she had. The following week blurred by in a series of emotional upheavals and logistical decisions. Malia took a leave of absence from her corporate fashion job, needing time to recover. She found a loft space across town, a short-term lease with massive windows, exposed brick walls, and an industrial chic vibe that appealed to her creative instincts. Moving day arrived before she fully processed it. With Joan's help, Malia packed her essential clothing, personal effects, and design materials into a moving van. She left behind most of the furniture and anything that reminded her of the life she shared with Darren. The loft was minimalist and messy, stacked with boxes, but Malia felt a thrill of independence as soon as she walked in. Sunlight poured through the huge windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. The rent was higher than she preferred, but this place felt like a literal blank canvas for her next chapter. Once the movers finished, she and Joan shared takeout on the floor, surrounded by chaos. "You okay?" Joan asked, eyes flicking over Malia's tense posture. Malia took a moment to respond. "I'm not sure. But there's a weird excitement, you know? For the first time, I'm living for myself. No illusions, no waiting for someone else's schedule. It's terrifying and liberating." Joan handed her a bottle of sparkling water. "Here's to your fresh start." They clinked the bottles together. Malia gulped down the fizzy liquid, letting the carbonation burn her throat. "I might do something crazy, like design a whole new line with no rules." Joan grinned. "Now that sounds like the Malia I know. You've always had that spark, but maybe it was dimmed by everything else." Malia leaned back against a pile of boxes. "I'm done living small for other people's comfort." A fleeting smile crossed her face. She felt the weight of heartbreak, but also a growing determination. This loft, these bricks and beams, they symbolized a reawakening. A place to build a new version of herself from the rubble of betrayal. A few days after settling into the loft, Malia immersed herself in sketches and mood boards for a potential independent fashion line. It was a dream she'd toyed with but always shelved due to her hectic corporate role and responsibilities at home. Now, she saw an opportunity to let her creativity soar. Amid the mess of fabrics and sketches scattered across the loft's concrete floor, Malia received a message from an old acquaintance, Tarek James. Soft-spoken and deeply artistic, Tarek was a respected freelance photographer who had once collaborated with her on a magazine shoot in New York. He'd heard about the scandal. Seemingly everyone had, but his message wasn't about that. He simply said, "Heard you might be starting something new. If you need visuals, I'd love to help." Intrigued, Malia invited Tarek over to see her early prototypes. He arrived in the late afternoon, carrying a sleek camera bag and wearing an easy smile. His hair was neatly braided back, and he wore a dark-fitted sweater that highlighted his lean frame. Malia noticed something comforting in his presence. He wasn't gawking with pity or peppering her with questions about the affair. "So this is the new studio," he said, stepping into the cavernous loft. His gaze traveled over the half-finished mood boards pinned to the brick walls. "I love it. Feels like you, in a raw, unfiltered way." Malia flushed slightly, feeling oddly exposed. "I'm still unpacking." But this is where I want to birth my own brand. Something unrestrained, something that reflects what I've been through." Tarek nodded, setting down his camera bag. "I admire that. Pain can be a powerful catalyst for art. Show me what you're working on." She led him through rows of fabric swatches, sketches on mannequins, and a vision board featuring bold lines, architectural cuts, and neutral palettes. Tarek studied each design with an appreciative eye. "There's a strength and sharpness here, like armor. But I also see elements of delicate femininity." "That's exactly what I'm aiming for," Malia replied. "A line that embraces the reality of being both vulnerable and unbreakable." They spent the afternoon discussing photography styles, potential locations, and the narrative she wanted to convey. Malia found herself opening up more than she expected, explaining how each design channeled a specific emotion: heartbreak, fury, resilience, hope. Tarek listened intently, occasionally jotting notes. His quiet acceptance of her story felt like a breath of fresh air. As twilight painted the loft windows with shades of orange and pink, she realized how much she appreciated his gentle confidence. In a world that seemed to feed off her tragedy, Tarek offered something different, a chance to focus on creation, not devastation. Before leaving, he snapped a few test shots of her standing by a mannequin, the evening light framing her face. The camera clicks echoed in the cavernous space, each flash capturing a woman on the cusp of reinvention. Afterward, he packed up, promising to send her the test shots soon. "Thank you," Malia said softly as he headed to the door. Tarek paused, meeting her eyes. "Thank you for trusting me with this project. I believe in what you're doing here." Long after he left, Malia sat alone in the loft, revisiting the designs. Something stirred in her chest, a renewed sense of purpose, buoyed by the promise of collaboration. Fueled by an intensity she had never felt before, Malia dived headfirst into launching her own fashion label. She named it Carter ///Cut, a nod to her newly severed ties and her desire for a clean slate. The name carried a certain audacity, an unapologetic statement of who she was becoming. Her days turned into a flurry of fabric sourcing, pattern making, and phone calls with potential investors. Surprisingly, a few longtime colleagues reached out with offers to back her project, spurred on by sympathy for her situation or genuine belief in her talent, or both. While she welcomed the support, she kept a vigilant eye on each agreement, wary of hidden agendas. Tarek visited frequently, capturing her creative process in real time. Each morning, she'd brew strong coffee and lay out her designs, explaining the story behind each piece. He'd film behind-the-scenes snippets, photograph samples, and engage her in candid conversations about resilience. Sometimes, she'd catch him watching her with a thoughtful expression, as if he were seeing something deeper than just a designer at work. One afternoon, Joan dropped by and was surprised at the bustling energy of the loft. She found Malia hunched over a sewing machine, expression fierce, oblivious to the chaos around her. Boxes of new fabrics cluttered the space, half-finished garments hung from racks. "Hey, Wonder Woman," Joan called, carefully stepping over a pile of thread spools. "I see you're in full-on creation mode." Malia pulled her foot off the pedal, looked up, and rubbed the tension from her neck. "More like survival mode. But it feels good, like every stitch is one more step away from that heartbreak." Joan grabbed a nearby stool, taking it all in. "I'm proud of you. Seriously. Not everyone can turn a betrayal into a brand new empire." Malia smiled, though her voice carried a hint of melancholy. "I still have moments where I break down. But each design is like therapy. I'm channeling my pain into something tangible." Joan reached out, giving Malia's arm a reassuring squeeze. "Keep going. I can already see the transformation in you." As the weeks passed, Malia's collection began to take shape, a striking array of structured silhouettes, edgy cuts, and discrete details like zipper lines forming geometric patterns. She poured her heart into every garment, imagining the women who would wear them, women who might need a little extra armor, a reminder of their own strength. The promise of a fashion show loomed on the horizon, each day ticking closer to unveiling Carter //Cut to the world. Despite the lingering sting of her personal life's implosion, Malia felt more alive than ever. She was forging something new and powerful from the ashes, determined to define her narrative on her own terms. The day Malia released her first teaser video for Carter //cut, the internet lit up with chatter. Tarek had woven together footage of Malia sketching designs, cutting fabrics, and pacing the loft in quiet determination. Over the images, Malia performed a spoken-word piece she had written herself. I found myself in the ashes of you, lost in the cinders of betrayal. But I rose, didn't I? Stitch by stitch, I sewed my wounds, and bled out every regret. You burned me, but you couldn't end me. The raw honesty struck a chord. Within hours, the video garnered millions of views on YouTube and other social platforms. Friends, strangers, celebrities, and media outlets all chimed in. Some praised her courage, others marveled at her fashion sense. A wave of support caught her off guard, flooding her notifications. Malia scrolled through comments with trembling excitement and tears in her eyes. This is what empowerment looks like. Cried my eyes out. She's turning pain into art. Can't wait to see the full collection. Reporters started reaching out for interviews, intrigued by her story of betrayal and reinvention. Instead of shying away, Malia decided to use this spotlight to further her brand. If her personal tragedy was fueling the public's interest, she would harness that attention to showcase her designs and message. Joan was ecstatic, pacing around the loft. Girl, you're trending again, but this time for all the right reasons. People are calling you the next big thing in the fashion industry. This is huge. Malia took it all in stride, her heart beating with cautious optimism. I'm grateful, but a part of me is still bracing for the other shoe to drop. Don't, Joan insisted, pulling her into a hug. This is your moment. Own it. While the world buzzed around her, Malia felt a profound shift. She was no longer the victim in a viral cheating scandal. She was the architect of her own destiny, forging a path forward on sheer resilience and creativity. For the first time in months, she breathed deeply, embracing the success that was blossoming from her pain. A few mornings later, as Malia was sketching in the loft, her phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. She nearly dismissed it, but something made her pick up. The voice on the other line introduced themselves as a producer from Oprah Winfrey's network. They had seen her viral video and wanted her for an interview segment focusing on women overcoming betrayal. Heart-pounding, Malia struggled to maintain her composure. Yes, absolutely. I'd be honored, she said, eyes darting around the loft. She hung up in a daze, a grin tugging at her lips. When Tarek arrived for a scheduled photo shoot that afternoon, he found Malia practically bouncing on her toes. You're glowing. Good news? He asked. Malia spilled the details, her voice breathless with excitement. Oprah wants me on her show to talk about heartbreak, resilience, and my new label. I never even dreamed of something like this. Tarek's eyes lit up. That's incredible, Malia. You deserve this recognition. I'll help however I can. They spent the rest of the day snapping photos of the final pieces in her debut collection, capturing the interplay of light and fabric. Each shot reflected the transformation Malia had undergone, her eyes no longer haunted, but vibrant and focused. Between takes, they spoke about the looming interview. Do you think you'll talk about Darren and Zara? Tarek asked softly, adjusting the camera settings. Malia paused, stroking the edge of a sleek pencil skirt on the mannequin. I'm not looking to trash anyone publicly. But if Oprah asks, I won't lie. The world already knows the basics. Tarek nodded, snapping another photo. You have the right to share your truth. Just remember it's your story. You decide how to tell it. She appreciated his support and insight. Tarek seemed to understand her on a level that went beyond mere professional interest. He respected her boundaries, never prying too hard or offering unsolicited opinions about her personal life. Malia found comfort in that steady presence. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations. Her publicist friend helped her craft key talking points. Joan volunteered styling advice. Mama Cora gave her a quiet blessing, reminding her of the power of grace. And in the midst of it all, Malia allowed a flicker of excitement to radiate through her. After everything she'd endured, it felt almost surreal to have such a platform. Before stepping on that plane for her interview, Malia took a moment of silent gratitude in her loft, gazing at the sunlight filtering through the high windows. She was no longer just surviving. She was, in many ways, thriving. While Malia flew out for her Oprah interview, the internet's attention momentarily shifted back to Zara Carter. Not for a good reason, either. A leaked audio recording surfaced, featuring Zara belittling Malia's heartbreak as dramatic pity parties, and mocking the public for falling for her victim act. In the recording, Zara's tone dripped with arrogance. She claimed she could bounce back from the scandal because she was the real star in the family. She even insinuated that Darren might financially support her new endeavors once his legal issues were cleared. The backlash was swift and harsh. Several major brands that had partnered with Zara suddenly distanced themselves, posting official statements emphasizing their commitment to ethical standards and respect. Contracts were terminated. Sponsorships vanished overnight. Her once prized lipstick brand started losing retailers faster than she could respond. When Malia heard the news, she was backstage at the Oprah interview, waiting to go on. Joan texted her the headlines: Zara Carter audio leak sparks outrage. Influencer loses sponsors after disparaging sister. Malia felt a twinge of sympathy, despite everything. She knew how it felt to have the internet descend upon you like vultures. But that sympathy was fleeting, overshadowed by her memory of Zara's betrayal. As she paced the green room, Malia considered whether to address Zara's downfall on the show. Oprah's producers had hinted at including questions about her sister's recent controversies. Malia resolved to keep her composure. She wouldn't gloat over Zara's misfortune, but she also wouldn't defend her. Zara's predicament was self-inflicted, a direct result of her callous words and actions. Just as Malia was summoned to the stage, her phone buzzed with a last-minute text from a contact at a major beauty retailer. It read, "Zara's brand is done. We're pulling out. Thought you should know." Malia tucked her phone away and stepped onto the set, stage lights warm against her skin. Despite the swirl of drama, she felt a calm resolve. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore, it was about her journey beyond it. As the cameras rolled, she reminded herself, she had found her voice in the ashes, and now it was time to share it with the world. Malia's interview with Oprah aired a week later, catapulting her story to even greater heights. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with viewers lauding her poise and vulnerability. In a matter of days, Carter //Cut secured new investment offers, and major fashion publications clamored for previews of her debut line. Meanwhile, Darren Carter's life seemed to be unraveling at breakneck speed. Legal troubles that had been quietly brewing came to a head. Darren was embroiled in a fraud investigation regarding some shady investments made through his consultancy. Photos circulated of him leaving a courthouse looking disheveled and frazzled, a far cry from the polished image he once projected. Malia kept her distance, only learning details through tabloids and the occasional update from mutual acquaintances. She felt an odd mixture of pity and relief. Pity, because she had once loved this man deeply. Relief, because she recognized his downfall was not her responsibility to avert. One afternoon, as she was finalizing the fit for her runway samples, Malia's phone rang with an unknown number. She hesitated before answering, expecting a media inquiry. Instead, Darren's weary voice came through the line. "Malia, I'm sorry," he began, his tone raw. "I messed up everything." She stayed silent, letting him continue. I might go to jail. My lawyer says there's a decent chance," Darren confessed. "I didn't call to ask for help or anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For all of it." A wave of emotions washed over Malia, but she found herself strangely calm. "I appreciate the apology," she replied, her voice steady. "But we're beyond that now." A choking sound came from Darren's end, as if he was fighting back tears. "Zara's not speaking to me. My friends vanished. My career is in tatters. I'm alone." Malia closed her eyes, remembering the heartbreak he had caused. "That's not my burden, Darren. I hope you find a way to take accountability for what you've done. I really do." She expected more pleading or excuses, but he simply thanked her in a broken whisper and ended the call. Placing her phone on the table, Malia exhaled. She felt no triumph in Darren's suffering, only a quiet resolve that her path was separate from his. Whatever he faced now was a result of his own choices, far removed from the woman he had once deceived. A few days before Carter //Cut's long-awaited runway debut, a delivery arrived at Malia's loft, an elegant envelope bearing Tariq's familiar handwriting. Intrigued, Malia set aside her stack of press release documents and carefully opened the letter. As she unfolded the stationery, she saw a few lines of graceful cursive. Malia, you don't need rescuing. You're saving yourself every day. But if you ever want a partner, in life or in art, I'm here. Her heart fluttered, heat creeping into her cheeks. She'd grown fond of Tariq, cherishing his unwavering support and the gentle warmth he brought into her life. But she hadn't expected such a direct declaration of interest, packaged in his uniquely poetic way. That evening, when he dropped by to shoot some final images of the collection, she stood in the middle of the loft, letter in hand. The late sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing between them.
So,
I got your letter, Malia said, looking up with a soft smile. She studied his reaction, noting how he bit his lower lip, a rare sign of nervousness. He set down his camera bag. Too forward? He asked, voice low. She shook her head. No, it was beautiful. I need time. I'm not ready to jump into anything right now. Tariq stepped closer, a reassuring calm in his gaze. I understand, he replied. I meant every word, though. You stand on your own, but I'd be honored if we could stand together someday. Malia felt her eyes mist. For so long, she'd thought love was a trap that ended in heartbreak. Now, she realized it could exist in a different form. Patient, mutually respectful, grounded in shared passions. She took a breath, nodding. Let's keep building what we have. No labels, no pressure. But I want you here. In my life. He smiled, relief evident, and pulled her into a gentle hug. In that moment, Malia felt a small piece of her heart begin to heal. Perhaps love could blossom again, not as a crutch, but as an extension of the strength she'd found within herself. Carter //Cut launched its runway debut in a converted warehouse, packed with media, buyers, and fashion influencers eager to witness Malia's first independent collection. The show was a hit from the opening walk. Models paraded down the runway in edgy silhouettes that balanced vulnerability and power, just as Malia had envisioned. The applause at the finale was thunderous. Within a week, critics hailed her as a new force in the industry, praising not only her designs but the emotional resonance they carried. The brand sold out its first drop, and pre-orders soared into the stratosphere. Amid this whirlwind, an industry award event came knocking. A prestigious Designer of the Year ceremony that Malia never expected to be nominated for, let alone win. But on a crisp autumn evening, she found herself walking up to a podium, breath shaky, to accept the award. The stage lights glowed around her, and the applause felt surreal. She glanced out at the audience, a sea of fellow designers, journalists, and celebrities. Her heart swelled with gratitude and disbelief. 2 rows from the front, she spotted an empty seat reserved for Zara, who had apparently declined the invitation. Zara's downfall in the beauty industry was complete, and it seemed her public appearances had all but vanished. Malia cleared her throat into the microphone. When I first started Carter //Cut, I was in one of the darkest places of my life. Betrayal and heartbreak can destroy you if you let them, but they can also push you to find your true self. This collection represents the moment I chose to rise from my own ashes. To anyone who's felt broken, remember, you're not defined by who hurt you, but by how you heal. The room erupted in cheers. She clutched the award, an elegant crystal sculpture, and blinked back tears. From the corner of her eye, she noticed her grandmother, Mama Cora, giving her a proud, teary nod. Joan was there too, beaming like a spotlight in her own right. And standing at the back, camera in hand, was Tariq, offering her a quiet thumbs up. Malia descended the stage with her trophy, heart thrumming with fulfillment. This moment wasn't just about an accolade, it symbolized a new life forged from devastation. She felt a deep sense of validation, not just from the industry but from the knowledge that she had survived, thrived, and arrived at a place of strength. In the days following her award, Malia received an unexpected letter at her office. It was from Zara, written on creamy stationery with her signature red lipstick mark stamped at the bottom. The contents were a mix of apology and self-pity. "I know I hurt you. I never intended for things to go so far, but emotions got the better of us. I wish I could turn back time. Please, find it in your heart to forgive me. We used to be sisters, Malia. Family. Don't let one mistake erase everything we had. I'm sorry. Zara." Malia felt her stomach twist as she read the words. She still remembered Zara blocking her after the betrayal, flaunting her self-justifications online, mocking her heartbreak. Now, with Zara's brand and reputation in ruins, it seemed she finally realized the gravity of her actions. That evening, Malia sat in her loft, letter in hand, pondering how to respond. Joan urged her to ignore it or set firm boundaries. Mama Cora reminded her that forgiveness could be an act of self-release. In the end, Malia decided to do something in between. She acknowledged she could forgive without allowing Zara back into her life. She wrote a short reply on a plain piece of paper. "Zara, I forgive you for what you did, because I refuse to carry your actions any longer. That said, forgiveness doesn't mean returning to what we once had. I'm moving forward, and I wish you the best in doing the same on your own path. Malia." No further explanation, no invitation for reconciliation. The next day, she mailed it to Zara's address, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. In that moment, she recognized the distinction. Forgiveness was for her own peace, but that didn't mean granting Zara the same access to her heart. Malia never received a direct response, but she knew the letter had been delivered. There was no second attempt from Zara. The relationship was severed. A fractured bridge that might never be rebuilt. And yet, Malia felt a quiet serenity, confident she had taken the high road on her own terms. In the wake of her successful launch and newfound personal growth, Malia and Tarek grew closer. They spent late nights conceptualizing future campaigns for Carter //cut, bonding over a shared passion for art and a mutual respect that underscored their slow-burning affection. One crisp afternoon, after a photo shoot in a scenic garden, Tarek led Malia to a bench under a towering oak tree. He pulled out a small box, his expression tender but not entirely serious. Malia's heart thumped at the familiar shape of the box, old anxieties creeping up. He opened it, revealing a simple band, not a diamond ring, but a sleek, modern piece of jewelry etched with tiny abstract designs. Malia's breath caught in her throat. "It's not an engagement ring," he clarified gently. "At least, not in the traditional sense. It's more of a promise, a creative partnership, a life partnership, whatever you want to call it. I'm not here to rush you down any aisle. I just want you to know I'm serious about building with you, in every sense." Relief, gratitude, and a flood of affection swept through Malia. She studied the ring, noticing how the abstract etchings resembled her brand's geometry. It was a testament to collaboration and new beginnings, free from the constraints and pressures of conventional labels. Tarek slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Malia's eyes misted, and she pulled him into a soft kiss. "Thank you," she whispered against his lips, "for understanding exactly what I need." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You deserve to define love on your own terms this time." They sat there a while, hands intertwined, the ring glinting in the afternoon sun. In that stillness, Malia felt a profound sense of closure. She had once believed that love led only to heartbreak, but this moment proved otherwise. Love, when built on respect and patience, could be a source of healing and growth. Months passed, and life settled into a new rhythm. Malia poured herself into expanding Carter //cut, collaborating with top stylists, exploring international pop-up events, and even developing a mentorship program for budding designers. The label's success soared, driven by her passion and the authenticity of her story. One quiet afternoon, while walking through her old neighborhood to meet a friend, Malia passed her former home, once the site of her happiest memories and deepest betrayal. A "For Rent" sign stood staked in the front yard, the curtains drawn. The place seemed dormant, stripped of the warmth it once held. Malia paused, letting the memory surface. The night she caught Darren and Zara, the tense confrontation, the heartbreak. The swirl of images felt distant now, like a faded photograph. She no longer felt the sting, only a mild nostalgia for the innocent woman she had been before everything changed. She took a deep breath and allowed a small, victorious smile to curve her lips. This was the home she had shared with a man who deceived her and a half-sister who betrayed her. Now it was empty, a shell of its former self, much like the illusions that once bound her. Malia continued walking, feeling the sun on her face, the ring from Tarek still snug around her finger, a symbol of new partnership, personal growth, and respect. She had discovered her own strength through unimaginable pain, and she had come out the other side, shining brighter than before. Some might say she'd earned the last laugh, but Malia no longer needed the concept of winning or revenge. She had a life she truly loved, a career that fulfilled her, and a partnership that honored her worth. In the end, she didn't just survive, she reclaimed herself, forging a future more dazzling than any betrayal could ever dim. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story.